Well, hello and welcome to the Blog Rundown, the weekly show from Movie Burner Entertainment where we discuss the latest movie reviews from our writing team. And joining us as ever is John, and we're going to delve right into this, John. This is a movie that Darren reviewed from 2014. It's Lucy, starring Scarlett Johansson, Morgan Freeman, and is directed by Luc Besson. And the plot is it's a woman accidentally caught in a dark deal turns the tables on her captors and transforms into a merciless warrior evolved beyond human logic.
Yes, I've not seen this one, Stephen, I can't lie, but it's taken that old tried and tested concept of human beings only using a small percentage of their brain, a small portion of their brain cells, and what would happen if they obviously used all their brain. I don't know if that's an actual thing, I don't know whether that's a true concept, but it's certainly something that's been floating around in pseudoscience for a number of years, a number of decades.
Well, Morgan Freeman says it is, John, so it must be true.
Morgan Freeman, the guy who's been the President of the United States and a whole host of other people. He's also been a guy who can get things in a prison in the middle of the 1930s and other films. So this is a guy who knows what he's talking about his superior knowledge. Morgan says it's true, so it must be, but I digress. She uses 10% of her, we all use 10% of our brains, but Scarlett Johansson's character, by all accounts, gets whisked into some strange thing. I've never seen it, I'm tripping here, Stephen, but I think she has a moment where she begins to control all of her brain and this transforms it.
Yeah.
The one thing I've taken from both your review, which you also done, Stephen, last year, and Darren's review, is that it's an intriguing little concept that it takes off from an action heist sort of a film at the beginning and transforms into a whole science fiction film towards the end. That's intriguing. It's something we've seen done to different degrees of success over the last few years and decades, and just in all time in general. It's a concept that's been done a lot in film. I think of 10 Cloverfield Lane, for instance. That started off as a small little siege, tense horror type of a film where it's claustrophobic and you've got these three characters fighting amongst each other. Then in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes it delves into a completely different direction. So if it's done right, then it can be an enjoyable and interesting little experience. I've never seen it though. I can't really discuss about the merits of the film itself, but I thoroughly enjoyed Darren's review, thoroughly enjoyed your review. I think he's mostly share similar views on the film. Morgan Freeman doesn't really get used a huge amount, but he's kind of used as like the guy who explains why Lucy's doing what she's doing and stuff like that. He's a scientific doctor type figure, and then he's like the audience member's view into the world and the story, and while she's going off and doing a whole host of different things. I'll let you in because you've seen it, Steve.
Yeah, John, it was almost 2 years ago since I saw this movie, so I can't really remember the ending. I did look over my own review just to sort of refresh my memory, and I think both Darren and I do agree that the film at some point does hit a brick wall. It starts off really good, I felt. But you're right, Morgan Freeman, he's there to really just narrate the situation, make us audience members understand the science in a very simple way. It's a clever little trick that the director uses, Luc Besson.
Luc Besson, yes.
Luc Besson as a director, I did like Taken.
More as a writer.
Yeah, he is a good writer. You're right. He did Taken. I think he might have. I don't know if he directed The Fifth Element or not. I can't remember.
He wrote it. I don't think he did direct it.
He wrote it,
No, he did direct it. I'm talking absolutely shit.
I can't, it's a film from nearly 22 years ago. And I think he's a fine director, and he has a style. He has this kind of slickness about him, this kind of Euro slickness about him. You can see it all over a film like Taken. You just know that it's got that kind of stamp on it from Besson, and this film's not any different. It's got all the sort of slickness to it, the action. I think Luc Besson does very good action movies. Story-wise, as Darren said, it starts off very well, and it kind of goes a little bit off the rails near the end, but overall I thought it was a decent film. I wouldn't go as far as saying it was an excellent film. It wasn't a bad film by any means. I think it got a good response as well, maybe just slightly over average response from the critics, but I got some kind of enjoyment out of it. It was Netflix possibly in 2017 or something like that. I can't remember, maybe 2016, and I just happened to give it a watch, and I don't think it was the most wasted 90 minutes of my life. I thought it was enjoyable enough.
Yeah. Sometimes you can get a great deal of enjoyment out of just bog standard average action films. I mean, they don't all have to be big bombastic blockbuster films or Oscar contention films. You can get enjoyment out of these films. Talking about Luke Besson, I forgot he actually directed Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. That was another enjoyable little film from 2017, last year. I really enjoyed that. That was slick. It seemed to fly under the radar of a lot of people. It's, when you look at the amount of reviews, it's got 129,000 on IMDb, 6.5. But I don't think that smashed it at the box office by any means. I seem to recall that getting quite a good word of mouth in the lead up, and then it just disappeared.
It does.
I haven't even heard of this one though, Stephen. No, you can't lie.
It does serve that Fifth Element feel to it, John, in regards to its surroundings, that kind of futuristic look. But you can tell there is elements of like Inception, The Matrix, and even Limitless in there as well. And one of the things I did like about Scarlett Johansson's performance in the movie was that I think the writers made sure that they weren't going to have another version of Black Widow. They did show her in her naivety at the very beginning. A scared girl at times, but the transformation into this more advanced being by the middle of the movie really transformed her, and it was good to see Scarlett Johansson showing those vulnerabilities at the beginning of the movie and then moving into a more confident character by the end. But by no means there's no comparison that this character Lucy and Black Widow were similar in any way, because they weren't.
Yeah, well, certainly the only thing I can see the ways are maybe slightly clashing in your opinion of a film is that you thoroughly enjoyed the story as a whole, Stephen. Darren says the screenplay didn't really do the actors on screen any favours. He didn't think any of them were very well written or fleshed out. As someone who hasn't seen it, I can't possibly comment on that, but I have enjoyed Luke Besson's writing in the main over his career, so maybe I'll just have to give it a watch and then I can make my own mind up. But the two good reviews. Darren's was enjoyable as well. I always like reading the other people's opinion. That's what makes cinema and film just a unique experience. It's all subjective. One person might hate it, some may think it's average, others may think it's absolutely brilliant. In terms of box office performance, though, actually done surprisingly well. It had a budget of $40 million and it earned $463.3 million at the box office, so massive success at the box office. So maybe we'll see a Lucy 2 someday if Scarlett Johansson can be asked. If she's too busy, maybe doing a TV show. Hint, hint, Disney. Black Widow TV show on their new Disney Plus service. Screw Loki, he's dead now. Give us a bloody Black Widow TV show, Disney.
Sounds good to me, John.
Yes,
but we're
going to move on,
we certainly are, John. We're going to move on to our second review this week, and it is from Darren once again. Yes. And it is a movie from 2018, which we talked about in great depth on the Movie Burner podcast, I think, John.
Yes, I think we did,
the very beginning of the year. This film's called Rampage, and it stars Dwayne Johnson, Naomi Harris, Malin Ackerman, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Joe Manganiello, and this is directed by Brad Payton. Now this, we talked about this, as I said, this is based on a video game. I remember having the video game for the ZX Spectrum 128K plus 2. And it was one of those silly little games that was just so addictive. I think it was like some kind of a ape and a dinosaur type thing, or a lizard or something, and there was another monster as well. I can't remember what it was, but
I think it was an alligator, Stephen.
Yeah,
a massive alligator, a crocodile.
That rings a bell, and it was a very addictive game, very much in the vein of Bomb Jack, if you remember that game.
I do remember Bomb Jack, yes.
From back in the day. It's just that addictiveness, very simple graphics and all that. But I digress. We're talking about film, not the video game here. Dwayne Johnson, Darren's review. He kind of sums it up in the description of Dwayne Johnson and his type of movies, John, in regards to they're never going to be Oscar material, but you will get some enjoyment out of them, or you won't. That's just the way that Dwayne Johnson movies go. A lot of people think Baywatch bombed. Darren certainly thinks so. Skyscraper was a bit of a disappointment as well. You saw Skyscraper.
I did, yes.
In the cinema, John.
It bombed at the box office.
Yeah, and Rampage did well, but you've just got to look at the critics' score, I suppose, to really judge it. Better audience score, to be fair, but as I said, it's a film that I'd probably put it in there with the ones I've just described. That if they ever come on a streaming service or perhaps maybe Sky Movies, it's one of those ones you're probably more likely to watch it in that format rather than really going out your road to go to see this in the cinema. A great cast as well there. When you look at the likes of Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I know you're a big fan of his from The Walking Dead, John. Joe Manganiello, who we all thought was going to be Deathstroke in the upcoming DC film, but that still hangs in the balance, I'm afraid. But nevertheless, great cast there.
Yes, absolutely. Again, we spoke about this at length, Stephen, but for whatever reason I just didn't go out and give this one a watch when it was in its cinematic release. It's probably because of the poor just response in general from the critics. Although I should never allow that to cloud my judgment, because as I've said time and time again, you're always going to have a disconnect between the audience and the critics on films like this. They have got the style and genre of films that they like. They're art house films, more Oscar contention type films, the drama heavy thriller films. As Kate Winslet said in the extras, if you play a certain role, you'll get up for an Oscar. They pamper to critics, those type of films. These type of films pamper to the average audience goer, the average cinema goer, who'll just take a big bag of popcorn and a nice big extra large drink and sit and enjoy and stuff their face while they watch action and great superfluous visuals. And this is exactly what Dwayne Johnson's action movies embody. It's exactly what Brad Payton's action movies embody. Of course, he's worked with Dwayne before on San Andreas, a film I did watch, which was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It didn't make much sense, the story. Just cliche ridden, like his daughter was stuck in this skyscraper and the water was rising up and he just somehow manages to pick her out in the midst of all this debris and stuff like that. And it was again the same in Skyscraper, that was the exact same as well. I've not seen Rampage, but I'm pretty sure it'd be a similar concept to Skyscraper and San Andreas, but it's just ridiculous, mindless visuals and big bombastic action. That's what you expect from Dwayne Johnson. He's got his market, he's a box office brand name now. I mean, his transformation of this guy over the last 20 years from a WWE, WWF star, whatever the hell you want to call it. I grew up with WWF, that's what I call it. Yep. He's transformed from a superstar in that medium to now being a fully fledged A-list Hollywood actor who can just pull in gargantuan box office numbers just because of his broad appeal.
I think his personality as well, John. I think he's such likable. You know, I was never a fan of any form of wrestling. I don't really want to abbreviate all these WWs, but WWF at one point. But you're right. He's got that pull and he's got charisma about him, and I think Dwayne Johnson would be the first to admit he's never going to be up for an Academy Award. And that's not a slant on the man's abilities. I just think he enjoys life, if we're being honest. I think he just puts his heart and soul into whatever he's doing. Certainly with the wrestling, he did that. Funnily enough, when you think back to one of his debut sort of roles in Hollywood, it was as the Scorpion King in that terrible CGI work in The Mummy Returns, I think it was, John. But he did get his own film out of it, The Scorpion King, which was actually slightly better because they didn't use the CGI. And from there, he's just not looked back. I think he knows as well that his movies are going to be hit and miss. My dad, he likes to go and see these films. My dad introduced me to Arnold Schwarzenegger movies in the 1980s, and although I moved away from that, my dad didn't. He likes those action movies. He likes no nonsense, as you said. A big bucket of popcorn and a big gulp, I think they're called in the US. It's just
a bag of corn.
A bag of corn, yeah. I think Dwayne Johnson's like or I should say England's. Jason Statham, yeah, exactly. You know what you're getting with him, and I don't think he cares anyway what people think. He's in it for the enjoyment of being in it, and I think he's going to just keep churning these out. But saying that, you will get films like Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, that will come out, and they'll be massively successful in their own right, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, in fairness to him though, Stephen, he has developed over the last 10, 15, 20 years. He was appearing in such numbers as Tooth Fairy, and it was just absolutely dreadful. Dreadful. So he's transformed from that calibre of actor, and he has learnt and picked up some acting chops and some range over the years. So who knows, maybe in 10, 15 years he may be looking at an Oscar. If he finds the right director and the right story, it might work. In terms of this film, as I did say, I haven't seen the film, but I do recall the concept. I think it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan was playing the villain, Harvey Russell. Darren says in his review that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's his favourite thing in the film, that he just smiles. He smiled every time he's seen him or heard him talking, and that's something I can get on board with, having watched him as Negan in The Walking Dead. He's just got that gravitas about him, that presence. It demands your attention when he's on the screen.
Darren also says that you're not sure whether the character's a good guy or a bad guy as well. And I like that. I like that kind of character. I think he's the right kind of guy to play that.
Well, that's similar to The Walking Dead. He's clearly a very bad man, but he's got a manner around him with some people. He demands respect, and there's certain moments where you think, is he really that bad? Maybe he's a kind man, but no, he really is. He's a bastard in The Walking Dead, and I'm sure it's the same in this. He's creating these big gargantuan, genetically modified animals, the big ape, the big crocodile, the big wolf, I think he says. I'm sure I've seen in the trailer it took down a helicopter. So I'm sure it's, as I said, full of action, full of silliness. And there's a few really good actors and actresses in there. The likes of, as you did say, Naomi Harris, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Joe Manganiello, and Dwayne Johnson himself. So, look, I says it flopped when we were talking about the films we're going to be discussing in the lead up to the show, Stephen. But you actually look at its performance, it didn't flop at all. $120 million budget. It grossed $426.3 million, so it's made a profit. It's just by Dwayne Johnson's standards. He's seen a little bit of a dip over the last few releases, but he's still making profits, man, and that's because of his pull. He's a victim of his own success, John. That's what I'm saying. Him and Jack Black, for me, but they made that film the success it was, and they'll make that franchise if it's going to happen, the success it is. But we're going to move on, Stephen, to the next review, and it's the final review in this week's blog rundown, and it's Outlaw King, a review that I did about also the new Netflix release regarding the hero of the Scottish Independence Wars, not treacherous, conniving little calculating bitch that was flip-flopping across battlefields that we've seen in Braveheart. He was a guy who was actually called Braveheart in the history books. It's about Robert the Bruce, and obviously his David versus Goliath story in the 14th century, and how he obviously fought a guerrilla war against King Edward I and his petulant little man-child of a son, Edward II, in the Scottish Independence Wars. This is a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's also written and directed by David Mackenzie. It's also written by Bathsheba Doran, aka Bash Doran, as they like to be referred to. I thought the story was very good. It's also had some criticism from people outside of Scotland who maybe don't or aren't as well versed in the story itself and maybe think it drags a little bit. I don't think it dragged at all, but that's because I've got a genuine interest in the story, a genuine interest in these characters. We spoke about this in a Movie Burner News show, Stephen. We briefly spoke about just what we took away from the film after initially watching it on its release on Netflix. I didn't think it dragged, as I said. I thought it was quite quick-paced. It was a little bit choppy at the start. It was reminiscent of the Rogue One in the way it just chopped between different characters, different locations, getting us into the stage where Robert the Bruce is going to be crowned as king,
King of Scots.
King of Scots, but technically he was never ever viewed as the King of Scotland by the English. Also, they were very much against him. They came up and tried to slap him down. Edward Longshanks was called the Hammer of the Scots. He certainly didn't hammer Robert the Bruce down. He's seen him off. Thoroughly enjoyed Chris Pine's performance, his accent. I seen him on Stephen Colbert, and he managed to eke out a little bit of Scottish reciting of, I think it was Shakespeare or something like that, out of him, and he still had it months after the filming of Outlaw King. So thoroughly enjoyed his accent. I thoroughly enjoyed a couple of performances in there. Stephen Dillon as King Edward I of England. He was also a primary antagonist for Scottish people over the history of these independence wars, but in this film he played a slightly more reserved figure. He took a back seat to his young son Edward II, obviously played by Billy Hole. He was the primary antagonist, and also that baldy git who I can't remember. When I was trying to do my review, Stephen, I was trying to pick him out in the list of the actors involved in the film. I still can't pick him out, but he was an annoying little git. The guy also done the backstabbing raid at night in the first battle we see between Robert the Bruce and the English. They were the two primary antagonists. Stephen Dillon's, or Delane's, I don't know how you say his name, Dillon I'm pretty sure, his King Edward I character took a back seat, which is probably more historically accurate, because at this point he was getting on in his years. He was suffering from dysentery and stuff like that. That's what he ended up dying of, and he took a backward step and allowed his son to try and step up to the mantle because he knew he was going to be assuming the throne. So it was just great seeing this part of Scottish history which has been butchered in other releases in the past. I mean, I enjoyed Braveheart, I can't lie. I did enjoy it for what it was, historically inaccurate, but it does stir a certain thing within you, the music and stuff like that. But the way it totally murdered the character of Robert the Bruce, I can't really forgive it for that, because the guy wasn't a treacherous git. He was a true Scottish hero who who eventually won independence. So it's great to see this David Mackenzie retelling of that man's story. I think it's more historically accurate. We get to see what he was about, what he went through. Obviously killing John Coleman in the chapel, assuming the crown and having to fight all of the dissenters in Scotland, and then banding them all together, and then for that one big final climatic battle in Loudon Hill. And just the cinematography was stunning, the writing and the dialogue. Something I've always enjoyed in David Mackenzie films, the dialogue's always punchy, and it certainly was the case in this. The interactions between the Tony Curran, Angus MacDonald character, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, James Douglas character, obviously Lord of Douglas, and then Florence Pugh as the Elizabeth Butt, also the young wife of Robert the Bruce. They were all, the way they interacted was all fluid and organic, Stephen, and they were in a sense different. James Douglas was an absolute nutcase. Really enjoyed Aaron Taylor-Johnson in it. Tony Curran was like his right hand man, stood by him throughout the whole thing, and obviously Florence Pugh's Elizabeth Butt character, she turned from a very quiet, laid back and like mellow figure into someone that was openly revolting and standing up to Edward II and his goons down in England. Yeah. But all in all, really enjoyed it. Thought it was a great retelling and more historically accurate version of the war. There was a couple of inaccuracies in there, but you're always going to get that. You need creative license to really, people are not invested in the story, they need a karma, a bit of payback to the Edward II character at the end, because he was a little bitch, obviously killing his brother and stuff like that, so he had to get some payback with that fight at the end, even though it didn't happen in real life. That's life. You need it in films like this.
That was quite a graphic scene, as I recall, John. Glad I wasn't eating at that point in the movie, but we were talking about this, as you said, John, in Movie Burner News a few weeks ago, and it was in regards to I think 20 minutes were chopped from the Netflix version, which we saw. I know that Kevin, fellow movie burner, he went to the Glasgow premiere of this film and saw the extended version that had more, had William Wallace in it, and it had some extended action scenes as well. Since then, I think it was a news article that we picked up that we discussed prior to watching the movie, and they described the bits that were chopped off, and I've got to be honest, I thought just over 2 hours and 1 minute, the Netflix cut or edition is coming in at, and I thought over those 2 hours it went in very quickly. I thought it was quite an interesting story. As you said, John, it's not historically accurate. One of the things I thought they should have done with the film was, we're Scottish, you can probably tell that. I think it wouldn't have done any harm putting titles up for where they were in Scotland, because what I found I was doing was I did a Google search on Robert the Bruce's timeline, and I felt that helped me to find out exactly where they were, because a lot of the reviews prior to me seeing this film were saying that this ends at the Battle of Bannockburn, which it doesn't. As you said, you mentioned it, John, it ends at Loudon Hill in Ayrshire, and Chris Pine's performance I thought was very, very well done. It wasn't all out caricature of a Scottish character, I thought he was very subdued at the very beginning of the film. His facial reactions said a lot about the character as well. There was a lot of
in the moment with Wallace. There
was a lot of, you could see the boiling point coming, in the character just from his performance, without even uttering a word. Florence Pugh, as you said, John, I thought she was probably the most surprising. I shouldn't really say that because I've already seen her in a few films, but I thought her performance was probably the standout. I knew what I was expecting with Chris Pine. I knew I was going to get a good performance out of him. Florence Pugh, for me, played a very mature character for such a young actress. Tony Curran I thought was excellent again, as Angus MacDonald. He was the right hand man, as you said. You also had James Cosmo playing Robert Bruce Senior, who it's not one of my favourite characters, I've got to be honest, but I do like James Cosmo. I think he's a fantastic actor. The list goes on. I think it's just for a film it will have a limited budget, because it's a Netflix movie and it's a particular story they're telling. I thought the scenery, I thought the cinematography was excellent. It really highlighted what a beautiful country this is. I think a lot of Scottish people love this movie, and I think it reminds us that we should be proud of our country as well, and what we've got here. Aaron Taylor-Johnson as well. I thought he was Aaron Taylor-Johnson in this movie. I don't mean that in in a negative way. I thought he was amazing. He was, another highlight in the movie. His character got some satisfaction in that last third. And I just thought Chris Pine's accent as well was I thought he did well. There's a little bit you could tell he was American, but I'm not going to hold that against him, because I thought Florence Pugh, I felt her English accent was coming through at times as well. It's just a very hard accent to maintain throughout a story, I guess, but we'll never know that because we speak that. But overall, John, I thought it was a good film. I wasn't going into expecting much other than my emotions were going to go through the ringer. Being Scottish, I was going to get really wound up by this. My blood was boiling at some points. Yes. I get really caught up in it. But overall, people were saying it does lay the grounds for a sequel. I don't know, because we seem to get those titles at the very end that were really giving us sort of conclusions to these characters.
But there is a lot of story still to tell. I mean, I think it ends maybe about 5 or 6 years prior to Bannockburn, so he led a guerrilla warfare campaign against the English for a long, long time. A lot of to and fro and hiding in woods, and also taking the castles back one by one. He ends up actually invading some parts of northern England as well.
Yeah, I think it goes over to Ireland as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of story here. Yeah,
so who knows? I think Chris Pine, I think he would be on board for that. Yeah. I think he's enjoyed this experience, certainly from the chat shows that we saw him on, John.
I think Aaron Taylor Johnson has as well.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Power tools out of the Home Depot, because he didn't know what to do with his life after it, and he built his kid a big tree house, so I think this guy would be well up for coming back too. And
if you're not Scottish, I think you still get some enjoyment out of it. Yeah. I've seen a lot of reviews from our friends down south enjoyed the movie as well. In fact, a lot of them were very upset with the way the English were portrayed in this as well. Not saying that it wasn't historically accurate, but I think in ways that they made them realise just what the situation was between the Scots and English at that point in history. And overall, John, I thought it was a great film. I think it's one, it's still on Netflix here. It's getting a good run here in the UK on the streaming channel. I think once it drops out of Netflix, it might be one that I might pick up on Blu-ray, because I did enjoy it.
Well, the final couple of things I'd add is I've actually seen it popping up in adverts on the TV quite a bit, so they're pushing it big time.
Yeah.
In terms of the English, we don't hold it against the English, that was just Edward Longshanks.
Yeah.
Even they admit he was one of the biggest tyrants, he was just an absolute bastard of a man. Yeah. They don't even like him. He was just, it wasn't even just Scotland, he was doing it to France and Wales and everything. He just wasn't a very nice chap, a bit like Adolf Hitler of the 14th century, just trying to take over just about every other country round about him, just because he was a git. And the final thing I'd add though, cinematography, it shouldn't really be a surprise that the cinematography is so good, with Barry Ackroyd being the guy that done it. You look at some of the films he was involved in United 93, The Hurt Locker, Green Zone, Captain Phillips. Amazing list of films there. The Big Short, Jason Bourne, Detroit. That was the brilliant film I watched actually last year. I never ever did a review on with what's his face, John Boyega, about that incident with also the Detroit riots and the way they were mistreated, the black people. So amazing cinematography. Really enjoyed it as a whole. I thought it was a much more faithful telling of the story than Braveheart. I've seen historians actually coming out and defending the film, because some people have been criticising it, saying, listen, this is as close as you're going to get to the real story. And that's what I said, Stephen, to you. You could look through the list of characters in the film, and that was one thing I really enjoyed. They're all real living people that you can go and research. So all in all, thoroughly enjoyed it. And that is going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of the Blog Rundown, where we discuss all of the movie reviews posted up on the Movie Burner website over the previous week. We'd just like to thank you for listening to us once again, and we will be back tomorrow with the Force Friday show.
Remember guys, if you enjoyed that episode, then do hit that like button, comment below, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you want to follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Movie Burner Entertainment, then we can be found on Twitter and Facebook at Movie Burners. You can also listen to us on Google Play and iTunes at the Movie Burner Podcast. And last but not least, if you want to access all the latest written reviews and the occasional article, then that can be found on our website at movieburnerentertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.